really focusing down on the algorithm sets and the standards, but it's going to take industry to actually turn those into products and services. And so the intersection of industry and government is really critical there. And it seems like a long way away because the NSM-10 sets 2035 as kind of the deadline for transition. But all of you all know that there's a lot of equipment, a lot of software and services out there that have to go through monumental change. And so having a convening really driven by the Cryptologic Foundation was an example of bringing all together, and we're going to do them again to really focus down on that as an exemplar. We're also looking at other topics that are really in the limelight now that are going to take proactive engagement from government and industry. One of the ones that you can't go probably an hour without hearing about nowadays is artificial intelligence and its ramifications for our society. And so we all know that the security of that in many respects from different vantage points is a key consideration. NSA has stood up the AI Security Center in the last couple of months. And so that's an example of a topic that we think in the coming months, perhaps next fall, we would have a convening on to bring industry together with government to talk about the issues and try to get a common path forward.
Yeah, the goal is to have that convening this fall. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get that ironed out in the next few weeks so we can get that on the books and get a place scheduled and everything to do that. So, we talked about this is a private-public partnership, and I think that that's something we've chatted about over the entire time I've been here, right? And why is that public-private intersection so important, and how do you see that affecting the relationship between the foundation and NSA moving forward?
Sure. It's interesting. I went 36 and a half years in the silence behind the curtain, as it were, and didn't have a very big public persona. And that was for all the right reasons. As you all know, in 2019, we created the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center. That was actually a little bit later, the Cybersecurity Directorate, and the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center was subsequently formed as part of that. But that being said, all of those moves were evident in our necessity to actually push out and engage the public, and especially industry, but not just industry. The public is really important because the public really has to understand what we do, why we do it, and the transparency that comes with that engenders trust. And so I end up finding myself engaging with the media quite often nowadays. It seems like a week doesn't go by that I'm not being interviewed by someone. And I'm proud to do it because it gives me a perch to actually talk about and showcase what NSA really is for so many who haven't known. And it's easy to do now because we have the cybersecurity mission that's opened the aperture for the public to better understand who NSA is and what they do and how important the mission is. And so that public-private partnership is now growing, it's alive, and it's starting to thrive. The National Cryptologic Foundation is right in the middle of that. We're trying to make sure we create the environment, the opportunity for government and industry to come together to talk about things that are issues of the day, and not to talk about them from the guise of acquisition and contracts, but talk about them thematically. What are these topics? What do we have to consider? What are all the moving parts across industry, across government and industry? And so we're looking to create that engagement framework to draw this totality of a broader cryptologic and cyber community together.
Excellent. That's true. And I can speak, on behalf of myself on this case of suddenly being in the public eye as opposed to having been behind that curtain all the time. It's a big change, something to get used to, but we all adapt as it turns out. Before I go into the next question, I want to just remind everybody, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and they will get to us. And then right outside the door, the man behind the curtain will make sure that they get to us.
Just to build on my last comment, many people at NSA don't have the opportunity to engage in the public, and that's part of our culture that really comes out of the intelligence side of the house. And so one thing that has always been evident to me, I've been lucky enough to be at that interface between NSA and the outside for many positions I was able to have. We can't underestimate the necessity, the power, the importance of connection. Whenever I've been downtown, everyone wants more NSA people in the mix because NSA and our community more broadly bring expertise, bring insight, bring drive, and bring outcomes. But by and large, many of our folks haven't had the opportunity, and so we're not well versed or well exercised in engaging with the public, and they're rightfully concerned about exposure of their identities and or the classified topics that they work day in and day out. And so we have to get practice, and it took me a long time to get practice, but I got it over years, and I became comfortable knowing where the boundaries were. And I think having an ability to connect is something that makes us stronger.
Yes, indeed. Um, okay, so we in the foundation have been talking about building community, and we really want to build that community of people who've retired from NSA, people who are who had resigned maybe at an earlier age and still want to be connected to us. People who are still in the workforce. So we talk about this building community. But right now, we understand that NSA is very interested in building a community that's part of their Future Ready Workforce program. I know it was a priority for both you and General Nakasone when you were there, continues to be a priority. And how do you envision the NCF playing a role in that?
Sure. Great topic. And just for those of you who hadn't been exposed to it, the Future Ready Workforce concept and push was really the outcome of an intersection of several different things that were happening. Number one, all of us in the national security arena have been confronting a different type of challenge. We have strategic threats that we're dealing with as a nation and as a liberal democratic society. And so dealing with these strong autocracies that are problematic unto themselves, but then of course they're aligning with each other. You don't have to go any further than the friendship / agreements between China and Russia to highlight the significance of that and what it could mean for us. And so that's one theme, trying to prepare the workforce of NSA for the pressures of an enduring strategic threat, such as what China represents to the US after having 20 plus years of working extremist type targets. The other thing is the workforce of today is not like the workforce that I joined back in the late 80s. People have different expectations. They have different opportunities. The world, their world, all of our world is more interconnected. And so when I think of new hires today and what they know, the speed at which they assimilate knowledge, the knowledge they bring to their game, and the opportunities presented to them, they're balancing many more pressures. And some of those pressures are opportunistic and opportunities, but they're balancing a lot more than I ever had to deal with. And so the generation today, we have to be able to understand them, what drives them, motivates them, and the needs that they have. And we all came out of COVID. Luckily, those of us that are here came out of COVID, notwithstanding those that were lost, unfortunately. That was a major change in societal expectations of the workplace. I myself am doing hybrid work these days, and all I have to do is have my phone basically and laptop with me and connectivity, and I'm rolling. That's not the case if you're living in a skiff. And so we're asking these digital natives who are coming out of school, who are fully connected with their social counterparts and everything else, we're asking them to leave that in the car while they come to work. We're also having them watch their peers take up opportunities. The world we're in the cryptologic sense, whether it be the signals intelligence or the cybersecurity arena, all of those focus areas have skills and expertise, technologies that are in high demand. And so people have many opportunities. Sometimes they want to take up on that opportunity. And so we have to hire our people with the expectation that they may not stay continuously over the course of a career. And so being able to go out for a while and come back is something I think we need to think about. And so the Cryptologic Foundation can help bring these communities together, create a sense of community, not just those that are still in, but those that are out and maybe those that want to go in and out. And so one of the things we're thinking about is how do we actually celebrate the reality as opposed to try to, fend it off and deal with it. The reality is the reality. And so I think NSA gets that. That's what the Future Ready Workforce is really trying to acknowledge. At the foundation, we get that. And I get many people approaching me routinely now, asking how they can help. They want to connect. Some people left, they want to go back. And I highly encourage that all the time. And so the foundation's looking for ways to actually create a platform that kind of lubricates the connection between the outside and the inside.
There we go. You talked a little bit about the workforce, and we do have this whole Gen Z population coming into the workforce. And one of the questions that came in was, how are they doing? How are the younger people in the workforce doing? And
Yeah.
what's your view of how they are adapting? Because it's right, they grew up with a phone in their hands, and now they're in this secure environment. So how is that working out?
So it's a tough proposition, especially when you're first hiring people who haven't had the ability to know what's on the inside. And so you're asking them to walk through a dark door, not knowing what's behind it, other than the fact they have to leave their devices in the car. That's a big, big deal. Um, I'm lucky in that I have one child. My daughter works at NSA. She's been there 2 years now. She totally loves it. And she was a digital native. She was connected to her devices all the time. Now she happily leaves her device in the car and she's connected on the inside. And I think the thing there is once you get on the inside, it's the mission that drives people. People want to be satisfied, fulfilled, empowered, and developed. NSA provides that opportunity. And it provides it in ways that many things on the outside can't, especially the satisfaction of the mission impacts and people feeling a connection to those impacts. And so that's currency. That's not a one for one for what you get on the outside, but it is a type of currency that brings satisfaction. There's a lot of opportunity on the outside, and what the foundation wants to do is create this this sense of connection and continuum. We want our companies to have talent because we rely on our companies to develop the products, the services, the goods that we need to conduct our mission. And so our totality of our community is constituted of government and industrial-based workforce members. That's what we want. We want it to be healthy. We want people coming into that in totality and not fighting over, well, who's going from company A to company B, or who's going from NSA to a company and maybe back again. And so I think trying to create a connection between all of that is an area the foundation can provide some value.
Excellent. Okay, so this is a burning question.
Uh-oh.
I'll tell you, we got so much feedback on this particular one, and I know the crowd out there is wanting to hear about it, but we recently shared a press release that NSA put out about the new Cryptologic Education Engagement and Education Center. So I know you were really, you had a lot to do with this. So can you talk about
Sure.
how that all came about following, our efforts to build the Cyber Center for Education and Innovation?
Yeah, so hopefully you all have seen that press release. If not, just look it up online. It's a great story, and like many great stories, there were bumps, twists, and turns, and sacrifices along the way. But in the end, the story has been created, and it's a great story. And that is the creation of a facility that is planned in the MilCon now in NSA's budget for a start nominally in FY27. But planning and design first stage has already happened this past fiscal year. And so that's to create a facility that's nominally twice the size of the original facility designed and planned by the foundation. And it really takes the vision that the foundation had well over 10 years ago for the CCEI. CCEI. Yeah.
Yep.
And it actually takes that vision and manifests it in something that's all that plus more. And the plus more really gets into how things have evolved in the intervening time and how NSA's mission continues to evolve and connect to the outside. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center. That didn't exist till 2021. We have a growing engagement through our National Cryptologic going to the school.
No.
University, I'm sorry. Used to be the school, now went to university, National Cryptologic University. Sorry. And again, they are actually providing courseware that is recognized by the accreditation boards. And so learning, continuous learning in the cryptologic mission, those are all growth areas for NSA. And so NSA found itself needing a space, a frame, a format that was very similar and akin to what the foundation had been designing and trying to build for a long time. And so when we got through the hard impasse of realizing that creating the CCEI was not going to happen, we got there, we got through it, and coincidentally, NSA found itself wanting to take that vision and actually turn it into reality. And so the baton has been passed, but it has not been let go. the NCF will continue to be involved. In that new facility, there will be, like the CCI had, a footprint for the museum, so that as people engage our cryptologic system, they will have to walk past and consider the history that got them to that place. And so that's a really powerful component of what we're trying to create.
So I think the other part of that is also that we turned over all of our design work to NSA, architectural designs, as well as we're getting ready to turn over the museum design work. But the architectural design work really set the stage for moving things along more quickly as they were doing the work to request military construction funding. So that was really, really helpful in getting that paperwork put together. It sounds like paperwork, but it's a lot of work to do MilCon.
A lot of papers.
It's a lot of papers. So, so I think we played a really important role in that as well.
And I just want to thank, some of you online here today may have been those that had spent so much time, toil, and treasure creating the vision and pushing that vision along for the building that the foundation was endeavoring to build on its own. Thank you. Thank you for what you did. Thank you for getting us to the point where we have now taken your vision all the way to the point of manifested in designs, turn those over to the government. They're picking them up and taking off. So thank you for your service for this great cause.
So there were some specific questions about when is that funding going to show up? When are they starting?
FY27. That's what we heard. That was what was released in the
Right.
NSA release to the press. And so what'll happen, as typical for MilCon, is once that gets solidified, then actual schedules for the construction and completion and things moving in and those types of things will become more evident a couple of years down the road.
And then another question, what about the museum during the construction? What happens? What happens to all the artifacts? What are we, is it going to be open?
Yes. So much like the original plan for the CCEI, the new CCI and now the new facility is going to be built behind the existing facility. And so the existing facility will stay open for at least most of the time of that construction. And then ultimately, we'll be working with NSA to understand really what the sequencing will be from the old to the new and if there's a gap in the final transition. But by and large, the current facility will stay open for much, if not most, of the time of the construction of the new facility. And then we'll move into the new facility. They will raise the old Colony 7 and turn it into the entranceway for the new facility.
Yeah, so very exciting.
Yes,
looking forward
very
to
exciting.
It. So another question related to it that we do get a lot about is Vigilance Park.
Sure.
Will it be reconstituted as a part of this construction effort?
Yeah. So it will not be reconstituted as originally planned. And part of that gets into it's a good news, mixed news thing. The good news is with NSA's plan to come into the space for all the reasons the Cryptologic Foundation wanted to put the point of presence there in that spot. The new building is going to be twice as big as the original. And so there's not going to be space for the Vigilance Park piece because there's, of course, the building footprint and then the associated parking. And so that's kind of the short answer. The longer answer is part of the future is trying to, celebrate the heritage of those that came before us. And so that'll be a consideration into the future as we look at the fit up of the new facility and the associated smaller grounds in its periphery to figure out how we can best commemorate those types of things.
All right, so there was one of these is a clarification on did you say the facility itself will be 3 times the size of the original CCI plan?
2 times.
Or 2 times, and it's of the CCI plan. It was asking it was of the building, the CCI or the current museum. It's
the CCEI
right. So,
was the new facility, which
right.
was bigger than the museum.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know how much bigger the CCI was going to be.
So the CCI was going to be 70,000 square feet.
Right.
This new building is going to be 140,000 square feet. The museum is a portion of that, but I think it's probably going to stay consistent with what was envisioned in the CCEI. So, which was
dramatically bigger. Both CCEI and the new building were dramatically bigger than the current footprint of the museum.
So, and in some cases, the questions are a little premature on what we can answer for some of this, because the other one is the library going to be bigger. I know that a lot of people are really interested in building out the library. I don't think any of that's been planned yet as for how large that's going to be. It was going to be a larger library under the old, under the CCEI plan, but we haven't gotten to the point where the building's designed. NSA hasn't designed the building. We don't really have the exact footprint of the museum or the library in the new museum, in the new building. So I apologize if we're hoping for some specifics, but we will share them
that'll be coming
once
down.
we know more.
Yep.
So, okay. Now I've lost my way and where I'm going. So there was, you had asked, related to the center. So NSA has kind of changed their engagement with industry and the public over the past 5 years, right? So talk about that a little bit, but then also, where do you see this going in the future? And especially in light of what role this new building might play in that as well, the new engagement and education center.
So the biggest piece of changing the engagement framework for NSA and the public is really in cybersecurity, which totally makes sense for all of you, I'm sure. And so what will happen is, as that engagement grows, if you just take a look at the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center. It was opened, I believe, in 2021. They're already working to double the size of it because that mission continues to grow in leaps and bounds. Just tune into the press, look in the press release part of NSA's website, and you can see the nature of the threat and the nature of the collaboration that NSA is having with the U.S. interagency, with the industrial base of the U.S., and with foreign partners. So it's a three-way partnership. Much of that, at least the first two, get into collaboration in an area where a physical structure that promotes collaboration is needed, and a big one that's accessible. And so a lot of the vision for the Cybersecurity Collaboration Center really aligned with the vision of the CCEI, having a place on the outside that's openly accessible for rapid collaboration. And so that's what this new facility will do. It'll actually basically codify the vision of what CCI was, but also what the Cybersecurity Collaboration did by leasing existing space, really as a stepping stone to occupying part of this future facility. And so the engagement with the public will continue to grow and intensify. And so I think by the time this facility opens, who knows what it'll be, but it'll be intense.
I think the other thing that was in the original CCI that I believe is still planned to be in this is we had this ability to have a large gathering space, which was so important for NSA outside of the fence line. So I think they would still, the plan is to still have a large, when I say gathering space, a place to hold promotion ceremonies.
There will definitely be.
The gala, whatever, Armed Forces Gala and things like that.
The other thing we're going to do is right now, the area of NSA that honors former NSA personnel, that is on the inside of NSA, and there's kind of a replica on the outside. And so NSA is going to reverse that. The primary home will be on the outside with the replica on the inside. So this will create an opportunity to take things that have been only on the inside, put them on the outside. The other thing we talked about was the memorial wall, for instance, that some of you will have seen in Ops 2B. NSA is looking at all the different pieces where they have touch points with family members, with the community, and trying to figure out how to restage that now that they will have an outside facility in the mix. So it opens up the opportunity for many, many different things.
Yes, indeed. So this is a very specific question that we got, but we'll go ahead and answer it. It's about the, because I know this crowd is really interested in the Center for Cryptologic History Symposium.
Sure.
So the question was, why was the 2024 symposium canceled? And the answer is it wasn't canceled, it was actually postponed. And so it is going to take place in the spring of 2025. It's scheduled for April 30th to May 1st. Followed by some time at the Cryptologic Museum on the 2nd of May, And we are also going to have, the foundation's going to have our general membership meeting the day prior, as we've done in the past. It's going to be held at Applied Physics Lab at the Koskikoff Center, as we've done in the past. And it really came down to the reason it was postponed was a staffing issue inside of NSA. They had gone through some reorganization and they just didn't have the staff to pull it off. So things are underway for the next one, and we are hopeful that that will take place.
Great.
Questions are still coming in. And so, so that answers that. Okay, so one of the questions that came, we're going back to mission a little bit.
Okay.
If you're okay with that.
I'm good.
Sorry, I can't control the order. So question is, what is the current balance of offense and defense at NSA? Or are they so closely integrated that makes them indistinguishable?
Well,
good question.
By offense, I assume we mean intelligence as opposed to offensive cyber operations. See,
yeah,
we used
good
to have
point.
all of offense, but now they're all different types. So you have to qualify. And I would say the balance is shifting in that the cybersecurity knowledge gaps we have in our country continue to mount. And there are many things that we're now confronting as a society that we weren't really confronting much, if not at all, not that many years ago. And some things that were considered criminal are now national security threats. And, glaring, bright, and flashing is ransomware. And so ransomware actors are really threatening our economy and many aspects of our society in ways that we could never have imagined. That's a national security issue. And so that's kind of a brand new in the last couple of years. Since 2021, it really started to gain unfortunate momentum without being curbed by the source hosting countries such as Russia. And so what that means is more energy that results in more intelligence requirements with priorities to get insights on these actors and attribute where they're operating from and through. What's the financial, following the money, which has always been a big thing, but it's very complicated in ransomware because they use cryptocurrencies and all types of obfuscation measures in the dark web. And so our community at NSA, as well as the broader US community, is really having a tough time dealing with just that piece, which is additive to all the threats that we hear about day in and day out from foreign governments, such as in Russia, FSB, GRU, SVR, or in China, the MSS, the Cyberspace Force, thousands and thousands of operators with lots of technology, especially in China. They keep investing in high tech, as we all know. Most of our tech becomes their tech. And so the government's trying to generate policy to put a curb on that. But all that means we need better, deeper, broader intel insights. That's the one magical thing that NSA brings to the cybersecurity game that others really can't. It's that, and we work with industry. NSA works with industry because industry has an increasingly sophisticated aperture, but NSA has a reach that others don't. And so together they become very potent, but that means more resources are required for both. And so it used to be that we thought that the old information assurance role was only 10% of the total pie. I don't know the percentages offhand now, but while I was deputy, year on year, we got additive investment in people and dollars to the cybersecurity mission. And that was forecast into the future as I was leaving, and it will continue to grow.
Okay, so this one I have to take a little, I think there's a typo in it, so I think I can get this, but
What is Laura doing here? No.
This is about relationships between government agencies, and the question is, having spent time, that maybe that's a bigger challenge right now than public-private partnership. And so what is your view on the relationships with the government agencies?
Yeah. I mean, in our area that we're talking about, the cryptologic mission, and I'll take both the intelligence and cybersecurity part of that. I think both are thriving. In my time, and I don't have any indication that it's changed, the intelligence partnerships continue to intensify across the community. NSA, CIA, FBI were like tight like this, and then of course the rest of the defense intelligence enterprise was really tying in between NGA, DIA, and NRO as an example, plus the service cryptologic components. Beyond all that, on the cybersecurity side, they have newer relationships, but they're really coming into the fore. And so if you look at the relationship between the Cybersecurity Directorate and CISA within DHS, with FBI, with a lot of the other sector management agencies, each of them is growing in their stature. And I'll just point to a recent success that's indicative of how things have progressed. Many of you all have read, and if you haven't, you should read the Cyber Safety Review Board that DHS sanctions and stands up. They did one on the Microsoft hacks that China had made, and that was really telling in many respects, but it also told a good story with respect to how fast the State Department found the intrusion. Not that many years ago, that probably wouldn't have happened. And so credit to them for coming a long way. And they had a lot of mission partners that helped them get to where they are now between NSA and CISA and others. But Kelly Fletcher, who's the CIO there, hats off to her and her team for putting the instrumentation in place, buying, because you used to have to buy all the extra features of Microsoft to get security. Now they've been kind of pushed and they've acknowledged they need to go further, and they have, which is great. And this is the whole thing behind the security by design and security by default that CISA has been pushing. Those are real deals. And so working together on all these topics has brought the interagency much more tightly together. And that's a great, great thing. We have a ways to go. We always have a ways to go because conquering cybersecurity problems is kind of the thing that we'll never get to. But I'm really been heartened by the relationship building.
So I will say, adding my own 2 cents on our most recent convenings that we did on post-quantum cryptography. We worked with NSA. They were our partner in doing this, and it worked out so well. But when it came to reaching out to other agencies, NSA was reaching out to NIST, for instance, and NIST almost became like the co-sponsor, whatever. I mean, they were so important to it, and they brought in other people. They brought in the OMB. They brought in the Office of the National Cyber Director. They brought in other organizations. And so in that, with NSA and NCF working together, all these other agencies then participated.
Yep.
And it was great to have them on board for this. As we move to artificial intelligence, it'll be maybe a different set of characters that comes to play in this. But
even the new ones, I've spent some time with Harry Coker and ONCD lately. They're coming into their own. They just released their second implementation plan on the strategy. And it's yet again taking the bar further. As an example, I mentioned ransomware, and so in the new implementation plan, there's going to be a push through DHS CISA, but into HHS and out for higher security standards in the healthcare arena. So whether that's the service providers, such as the insurance service providers, or the provisioners in like the hospitals and those types of things, all of them need to be able to be brought up to a different level. And that's really the opportunity for industry to really help make that happen. The government is illuminating the threat and trying to get the policies aligned, but it's really going to be incumbent upon industry to come in with the solutions.
So one of the questions that was asked is about how can alumni help the NCF? We have a great big alumni group out there, and I have some answers, but first I'll let George answer, and then I'll give some answers as well. How's that?
So we would love to have engagement by alumni. As hopefully you can tell by this couple minutes we've spent with you, we're excited about what the NCF is going to be. We're super excited about what it has been, how it got to this point, but we have a big job to do. And so we need to bring energy to that job and those jobs really. And that energy comes through people who are engaged and driven and want to help make this thing what it needs to become. And so we are going to be, as I mentioned before, we're looking at different types of engagements. Engagements take volunteers, right? To get people to help with all the mechanics of laying on these convening activities. We're talking about concepts for maybe having a community reunion of some sort this fall. Details further to come. But be that as it may, we would love to have more help. That we are always going to be in short supply. So come on.
Yeah, so we value the expertise that's out there, and one example that we can put out there is podcasts. We have this podcast that's targeting youth, right? That's who the audience is, right? Building that next generation of
Exactly.
cryptologic and cyber, cyber professionals. But if you have expertise that you think you could share as part of that, we'd love to hear from you. And maybe you can get your 15 minutes of fame on a podcast.
I can see some names out there right now who I know could be great. So don't be
So-
bashful.
So yeah, so that's an example. And of course, we always like any help we can get in getting new members and making those connections. You see an event, especially when these convenings coming up, you see an event that you think people will be interested in, please share that. Share that with your group of friends, your group of colleagues, and so we can expand our reach.
Definitely. Great.
So I don't really have any other questions. I don't, there's one here, but I'm not sure what we have an answer for about helping
Oh, applying for jobs at
yeah,
NSA.
applying for jobs at NSA.
So, and the challenge of getting in the door. We've never heard of that problem. So, NSA is continuing to try to really rejuvenate and reinvent how it identifies, taps, and pulls in talent. There have been several initiatives under the way in the last couple of years. One of those is actually trying to do a lot of work at re-engineering a lot of the pieces that traditionally went more sequentially and required a lot of non-automated labor. And so one of the things that the DNI has been pushing and all the agencies have come a long way is just the total time between when a person gets a conditional job offer and when they come in the door. And so those timelines have been shortened dramatically as far as the goal. And all of the agencies are making great headway to really compress those timelines. And there's been a lot of imaginative process reengineering within NSA and the sister agencies to try to get those timelines to be tighter. We're always balancing those timelines with the necessity for security. And so, again, sitting where I sat, I got to see all the bad things as well as the good things. And some of the bad things were those things that our security process found. And so I was ever mindful and reminded of the necessity, the criticality of a good security process, because unfortunately, entities we wouldn't want working in our spaces continue to apply. And so we have to be able to filter and cull them out via our processes. The other thing NSA is working on, and will always be trying to get better, is identifying talent through the automated application process. And so we all know people who have been through that, and I can't ever say I've heard it was joyful. And so work is continuing to try to make that a more streamlined, more effective. And so that's a work in progress.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and
But if you have somebody that you want to get in the door, that's where keeping our networks fresh is really important, to highlight them to a counterpart that's still on the inside, a hiring manager, to bring this person, their experience, their attributes to the attention of somebody that can actually help.
Okay. And I'm out of questions, and I haven't seen any more come in. I haven't seen any more come in.
Well, rather than let it get stale,
yeah.
I'm delighted to be here. I'm energized, excited. The NCF is on its way, and it's come a long way. And so nothing to suggest it hadn't before, but I'm just really excited of taking the baton and moving it further down the field. And that'll only happen with engagement through all of you and others And so we have a lot to get done, but we have an exciting mission that's really important for our nation. And so thanks for joining in today. Pass the word, and we will be in touch.
And Christine has a few slides we're going to share before we go, so we know what's coming up. This is what I mentioned about sharing your expertise for our Cyber Chats podcast. So already mentioned that. So again, please let us know.
And it's covered up by the...
No, well, not for them, just for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right.
And so some upcoming events. So we have our annual Crypto Cup is coming up at Waverly Woods Golf Course on October 3rd. Signups are open now. our Cocktails and Code Breakers, our 3rd annual Cocktails and Code Breakers, we're going to have Montel Williams join us, who is a retired Navy commander, lieutenant commander, and a cryptologist. And he's also the current host of Military Makeover with Montel. We are also trying to get somebody from the government side to join in, probably as a separate talk. We're working on that, so that might, stay tuned for that. So then we're hoping to have another Convening to Act series. That's in the fall of 2024, probably November timeframe, working with NSA to make that a reality. And then next April 29th of 2025 will be our next general membership meeting. And that will be in conjunction, as I mentioned, with the CCH symposium. And we can move forward. And these are the details for the CCH symposium. I believe somebody shared those in the chat as well. Cindy shared those in the chat as well. So we have that. And I believe that is everything. So thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate the support of all of our members and colleagues. And we're looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for taking an hour time. Really appreciate it. Let's see you again. Take care now. Bye.
Bye.